Hi, and welcome to episode 40 of the ChessTDD series. I think I added a Trello card in there after the last episode to indicate that I wanted to finish up with this unit testing implementation that I didn't quite finish with. So I think it's going to take me one more test case to drive this out, where I want to verify that I can move to the left for a capture if I'm the white player. Anyway, I think that this whole thing is pretty much a non-starter for the black pawn, and that's going to be tackled in upcoming episodes here, because I've been noticing that through the course of this implementation, that way back when I was doing this, I was only implementing at the time for the white player. So what I'm doing here is a lesson that I probably offered up in early episodes, but a good lesson to take away from this is always look to refactor not only your production code to eliminate duplication and promote readability, also do it with your test code. So I'm going to write this helper method in here called isCaptureAllowed, because I'm doing a lot of the same stuff in this particular test class here for the isCaptureAllowed method. So can capture from 2-2, I'm sorry. The idea of, so there's this pawn at 2-2, and I'm testing all these different things about that setup. So rather than have this target.isCaptureAllowed with the same origin coordinate every time, why not factor that out and just say, can, the following coordinate be captured from 2-2? I wholeheartly recommend this sort of duplication elimination. There's another thing that's particular to my own preferences that you'll see going on here. I am a person that is not a big fan of factoring the assert statement out of a unit test. So when I go looking at unit tests, I like to be able to see what the assertion is. And I like as little going on around the assertion as possible. So having very concise, clear arrange and act in conjunction with the assertion. But I want to see everything kind of that I need to see to understand what's happening, and then the assertion in the test. I have seen implementations of abstracting out an assertion that I don't hate, especially if the auxiliary method name contains assert or something. But nevertheless, my preference is to see exactly what's being tested right there in the method. So the method has a good name that I can understand, and all the context is clear to me, and I can see what's being tested. That's really the goal. Okay, so all that being taken care of here, it's time to bring in the next test that's going to be failing, which is I want to capture... I'm sorry. I was going to the left before. Now I'm going to the right. And I want to make sure that basically that covers both bases for the white pawn. That if there is a piece that's to the left one and up one, or if there's a piece that is to the right one and up one, either case, I can capture that piece. And again, this is not going to work for player 2, but that's something I will get straightened out later. I kind of decided as I was doing this that I wanted to get it right for, in all the different scenarios here for the pawn, to kind of get it right for player 1, reasoning that it would be easier probably from an implementation perspective once I had all of that right to then just implement the logic that reversed it. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but that was the operating hypothesis. I think there was one last thing that I wanted to test here. I don't remember if I got this read and had to do more or not, but I probably did based on that implementation. So I think this is going to let me capture pretty much anything that is either one column to the left or to the right. I don't want that to be the case. So I wrote that test, saw that it did in fact fail. And I want to say, okay, it's not enough just to check which column this is in. I have to check that it is also in a row that's only one ahead of me. So the origin square plus 1 needs to equal the destination square. So now I feel that I have a pretty good implementation of this is capture allowed concept. The question then becomes kind of where to go next. Oh, and I do recall now as I'm seeing it that while this was green, I decided I have this nested conditional, parenthetical, anded with, so I have an or of two conditions parenthetically anded with another condition. That's a lot to grok in one sitting. So what I want to do is give a good name to this parenthetical or, and then extract it into a method. So is over one. And then since I kind of want to preserve a consistent level of abstraction in this method, I'm going to factor out another method. Now, this second condition is fairly simple, so probably on its own I wouldn't factor out a method necessarily. But like I said, I want to have this read consistently. So is over one and is up one. That makes is capture allowed pretty easy to read for a pawn. Like that's something I could show to somebody who knows nothing about programming that is a chess player, and they'd probably look at that and say, oh yeah, that's right. So getting that kind of readability into code, maybe not the highest priority on earth, but that is the goal as far as I'm concerned. That I've heard it said, I don't know if it was Uncle Bob or whoever said like clean code reads like prose. So as somebody scanning through, you have this ideal goal where even somebody who is not a programmer could look at least your domain specific code. I'm not talking about like, ORM manipulation and all that, but like your domain specific code that somebody who's not a programmer could look and say, hey, yeah, that sounds right. I don't know what necessarily all these symbols mean, but like that reads to me like the right thing. Okay, so now that I've kind of teased out that more granular method the way I want, I'm going to pull back out here and say, I'm going to stop at this level of granularity and go back to my ATDD world. And as a sanity check, I don't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen here right off the top. I think this is going to fail if memory serves, but now that I've kind of straightened out this where captures are and are not allowed, I want to go back and see what's going to happen in this acceptance test scenario where if I am at 1, 2 in this board, I should be able to, as I would have before, move to 1, 3 and 1, 4 since this would be the first move. But because of that black pawn that's there now, and that's a capture opportunity, I should also be able to go there. And I made a note to myself, this test is green at this point, but I have one more condition to write, so I'm pretty sure it's going to go red. In fact, I'm positive. So that means that I haven't, implemented the converse. So I've gotten good at figuring out where the is capture allowed should be true and where it should be false. But there's this other concept in here that I'm going to have to get at, which is capture disallowed. Now, as I was thinking about how to implement this, I recall deciding to do kind of the same thing, which was to go up to the piece level and say, okay, I've got this is capture allowed method, and I want to also have this is capture disallowed or whatever I called it. So from the perspective of is a move legal or not on the board, this is at least conceptually somewhat straightforward. Okay, so previously we had this concept of is the coordinate valid for the board size? And then there was also this idea that, okay, if we're doing an origin and destination, is the destination coordinate valid for this board? Is the origin to destination path blocked? And we also don't want to allow this move if a friendly piece exists at the destination. And now we're introducing, on top of those three things, these two other concepts. So if this is a capture move, is capture allowed for this piece with this move? And if it is a non-capture move, is non-capture allowed for this piece with this move? Now, off the top of my head, I think this only applies to pawn. So what I'm faced with here is an interesting design conundrum, which is, do I want to go back and kind of revisit my entire design and maybe try to do something completely new? do I want to violate that dependency flowing one way between board and piece? And suddenly, I could make board and piece both know about each other, but I don't like that. I don't like cyclical dependencies at any level of my design. But then the other problem here is I am putting this method onto piece that is really only used by pawn, which is sort of a subtle interface segregation principle violation. Now, with some of the way I've danced around that before, like the has moved or whatever, there are a number of pieces that need to know about that. Off the top, I don't really think that there's any other piece that has this ability to move in different ways if they're capturing or not. I might be wrong, but it doesn't strike me that there's anything, even with some of the oddball moves like castling or moving through check or whatever, I don't think there's anything where this is relevant. So, and there's another possible design avenue that I'm not mentioning, which is I could just implement those methods on pawn and then do a Liskov substitution principle violation where here in is move legal, I start checking to see if the piece is a pawn. That to me is a non-starter. I really don't like that style of programming. So what I'm not going to do is start using reflection or type inspection to see what sort of type this is. To me, that's kind of the ickiest thing I could possibly do. If I'm really worried about this virtual method that I'm creating only to be overridden by pawn, which it's not a huge worry to me. It's a little bit of a design wart. What I'd probably want to do, in my opinion, is maybe in a subsequent version of this application, once I kind of ship, as I mentioned earlier, that I was trying to do, go back and maybe revisit the relationship of board, piece, and some of the logic that's going on here. I think that would be perhaps the most elegant solution. If you have a solution that you think is more elegant, what I'm discovering is I get a lot of people kind of contacting me about this stuff. The easiest thing is maybe you can clone the code and then in your own GitHub account, like kind of show me what you're talking about. If you have ideas for what to do, it doesn't translate as well in some of the comments or emails. But by all means, offer feedback if you've got an elegant way to handle this consideration. But anyway, back to the present, what I'm doing here is similar to what I did last time, which is to implement this method on piece and then override it in pawn. So let's see, what am I doing here? I think I toyed with doing the same kind of really simple thing to get this to work, but I couldn't, no matter what I would do, get the test to go green because I was breaking old functionalities. So I actually gave it, I think, the right implementation here. So is non-capture allowed? Oh, I see so what I needed to do was go in and add, I sort of got so busy talking, I forgot I was adding a move option to the pawn's like core set of moves. So what I went and did is said, okay, for all of time since we first implemented pawn here, the pawn could move one space ahead, or if it hadn't moved, it could move 2 spaces ahead. So now I'm introducing, okay, well, there's this other move that a pawn can do. The pawn can move diagonally over one, up one. Problem with that is, unless I get a lot more restrictive right off the bat about that, is non-capture allowed, then I'm going to have failing tests everywhere. So, with the adage, it's the simplest possible thing you can do to get the test passing. In this case, I have to do a more complicated thing than I did in the similar method before, but it was the simplest thing I could think of. Okay, so now I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping here. To me, so I added a card, and then I'm kind of trying to prioritize this to get something out the door. Like getting the actual piece movement, these top few cards. is becoming sort of critical. But I do want to make a note that, man, I'm starting not to be a huge fan of this isMoveLegal method. And when you have this much, so I could say like, all right, let's abstract this out to a series of methods in the class. But to me, a whole other responsibility is emerging. Like move legality, when I started implementing this, was not all that hard, but it's becoming pretty non-trivial. In a way, if I go with the single responsibility principle, to me, this is becoming almost like an orthogonal responsibility of this class. So board is kind of like encapsulating this array, and it's keeping track of where the pieces are. And move legality wasn't too much of an addition to that before, but now I almost think that there has to be this like move legality checker that like, has a board as its dependency. Because as I'm looking at this too, I don't know that there's all that much here that, if anything, that's non-public. So like this isMoveLegal class may be fairly easy to pull out of, isMoveLegal method may be fairly easy to pull out of this class and have it take a board and just operate on board's public methods. So I want to capture that in Trello as a definite design possibility, because there's already a bunch of methods in this class, and yeah, I can make this more readable by continuing to extract out more and more of them, but I don't want like 30 methods in here. Even if the class isn't inappropriately long, it's getting busy with methods. But in the interim, the least I can do is maybe get rid of some of these confusing early returns. As implemented right here, this is not especially awesome. So I think I'm going to invert this. Or maybe I had named these poorly. I wanted to invert these conditionals and then express. So when I'm doing the single return here at the bottom, what does it mean? And this again speaks to the complexity. If it is not illegal, double negative is not great, but it's better than these early returns. So what does legality mean? Well, it's not legal if we're talking about an illegal capture or an illegal non-capture. Those mean that the conditional's not that we should return false from isMoveLegal. So I have to do this double negative to frame everything in terms of legality. Maybe I don't. I don't know. I didn't spend a ton of time. You're watching me kind of live code, and my main goal was to get rid of those early returns and then put a pin in this for later revisiting. So this is not great. It's getting pretty complicated, but I tried to create some interim local variable naming that would be at least a little bit of a help with the clarity here. So up front, I'm going to determine, like, are we talking about a capture? Okay. If we are, then we want to check to make sure capture is allowed. If we're talking about a non-capture, we want to check to make sure non-capture is allowed. And then we want to do the rest of the things that we were doing. So there is simplification and improvement that can be done there, possibly up to and including extracting all of that stuff out to a class to get rid of all the double negatives and the temporary local variables and everything else. Like maybe we can make a nice functional implementation there. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about a left one, up one capture. So I want to say here that, and again, I don't remember. That's why I like actually doing this visually is very helpful. So even looking back at my own coding recorded, I can see easily what I'm testing here. And I know that I should get those two moves in front of the white pawn again. So 2-3 and 2-4. And then I should also have 1-3, which I think I don't have because I didn't do that yield return addition that I'm going to need. So I'm expecting this to go red if memory serves. Yep. So what I need to go do is, once again, back here in pawn, I need to add yet another yield return. And it's going to be the same deal, except the starting location, we're going to decrement X instead of incrementing it, and rely on the board filtration to take care of it not being allowed on this board or what have you. So starting location dot X -1, and then again with the Y +1. And then, it's good to see there that this implementation of is non-capture allowed did the trick. So that's actually going to help get, or that actually gets that acceptance test passing. So feel pretty good about this to wrap up the episode. That gets us to the point where the thing that I set out to do, which was to get the diagonal capture stuff implemented for pawn, that's done. So, hey, that's good. I think I tried to get a little bit cute here with maybe making this conditional a little better and doing some kind of De Morgan's Law thing or something. I'm not sure if it worked. And then I think also I saw that I was at the end of this episode or thereabouts, right at the 20-minute mark here. So maybe decided to back out this change and just call it a day. Backed out too far. So yeah, wrapping up here. Plenty of stuff to do next time, but feeling good about the fact that one of these things that was just on the docket forever, like the diagonal pawn capture, it had a few wrinkles and it introduced some implementation trade-offs that I'm not thrilled about making. But hey, we got that done. The diagonal capability exists now. So next time it's going to be a question of, what did I add here? I think maybe this was a note about getting to... Oh, no, I had already captured the idea of wanting to do this properly for the black pieces for pawn. That's going to be a thing that we have to do. But I think maybe fleshing out a little bit more of the edge cases on is non-capture allowed. And then, I'm kind of confusing myself by recording episodes at once. Since, as I've been mentioning, this clearly isn't going to work for the black pawns. And I'm going to bump those up to the top because while I'm congratulating myself a little bit, it's not exactly done. There's work to be done on this pawn implementation. So I'm going to bump those to the top and then hopefully fairly quickly after that get around to en passant. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. And next time I'll do a little bit more work on some more pawn stuff.